Assalamu alaikum. I know it's getting late, but let me introduce myself. My name is Khadija Ahmed, and I'm the current Vice President of MCC. It is my honor to be on stage tonight, and I will, as I'm talking, I'd like my panelists to please make their way to the stage. Omar Carter, Isra Bhatti, Kazim Mohammed, Shakib Alam, Hazel Gomez, and Bakr Desanovich. So, as we are gathered in this beautiful space, I know dinner, everyone's waiting for dinner, so let me just give you a little tidbit about Chicago culture. Any of you who has attended a Chicago wedding, you don't get the food before 10:30, so we're used to it. Alhamdulillah, when we were looking to see how we're gonna celebrate MCC's 50th Gala, we thought about all these different keynote speakers, and then we all came to a conclusion that we do not need a keynote speaker. We will celebrate our own MCC people. So I see my panelists here, so I'm gonna make my way to join them. I've been told to make this quick, so they put a woman in charge to fix things again. All right, some of you I'm meeting for the first time, some of you we've crossed paths on the electronically. I'm just gonna give a quick introduction to our panelists here. We have Omar Carter, who is a former member of MCC Board of Directors. He's a certified information systems security professional and head of global cyber analytics at Zurich Insurance. We have Isra Bhatti, who grew up in the MCC community, attended Sunday school in Morton Grove since first grade. After graduating as a valedictorian of Glenbrook South High School, she attended University of Chicago and Yale Law School and is doing amazing things. We'll talk to her. And then we have Kazim Mohammed, who's been part of the MCC community since he was born. He graduated from MCC Sunday School and has been part of the Sunday School family forever. We'll also get to Kazim in a little bit. And then we have Shakib Alam, who is an investor and a philanthropist and a social entrepreneur. A very, very inspiring bio. And now we also have Hazel Gomez, who took her Shahada at MCC Elston. She is one of our own. She is also doing a lot of amazing things in Detroit currently. Next to Isra is Bakr Desanovich, who arrived to the United States in 2001 with his family as a refugee fleeing from Bosnian War. Bakr attended MCC Academy and is a graduate from there. Currently, he's a second-year medical student. And as young as he is also doing tremendously amazing job about other things besides his education. So we'll also talk about that. So I apologize, I had to cut down the bio, and it's really so impressive for all of the work all of these panelists over here are doing. I'm gonna start my question with Omar. So Omar, please give us an overview of your MCC experience and how it has shaped you into the person you are. And we know you're currently very active with your community. And share with us, how did you keep up those values of putting the community first?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. First of all, thank you for inviting me here. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with so many friends and family from MCC. So in 1996, I was in a very rough place in my life, and I met a brother who's sitting in the audience, Nasir Raoufi. I had just converted to Islam, and he saw me with a dhikr bead. He was like, "What is that?" So I started giving him dawah, and come to find out, he was a Muslim himself, and he told me about this place on Montrose and Elston. I should go there. When I got there, I met a lot of really great people. One of the most dynamic brothers, he's sitting in the audience. I'm going to try not to tear up when I say his name, and it's Sayyid Azmatullah Qadri. This man has been my second father. He's been a mentor, and he's been so many things to me. So he was one of the first Muslims I saw at MCC and I interacted with, and he continues to be a person that I look up to until this very day. So long story short, I got involved with MCC. I was a treasurer and a secretary, and he was the one who pulled me in. And ever since he pulled me in, I was stuck. And ever since I've moved on, I'm now working with Iman, which is an awesome organization on the southwest side of Chicago. So for those of you who don't know who or what Iman is about, I encourage you to come down on 63rd and Western and see some of the inspirational things that we're doing that was partially inspired by the great work that MCC kind of laid out for us. So I'm going to stop there. I don't want to go over my time, and I'm going to hand it over to the next panelist.
Thank you so much, Homer. Next, I'd like to pass Isra. So I have a question for Isra. Please share your MCC experience and how it prepared you for what you are today. And while in school, you worked with the government and the nonprofits on designing social programs to assist individuals returning from jail and prisons. Talk to us about how your Muslim identity intersected with your work.
Sure. Yeah, assalamu alaikum, everyone. Like Sister Khadija said, I feel like I grew up in MCC. I remember selling chocolate as a 6-year-old to try to raise money to buy the MEC building. Yeah, I see some nodding heads there. Yeah. That's a great feeling. Just to reflect on how far we've come, I really credit MCC and MEC with just grounding me in Islam. I don't even know where I would be if I didn't attend Sunday school, and I see some of my teachers here. I mean, they really taught me the religion and the fundamentals, but beyond that, I think, life, now I can reflect on this, but life gets really hard after you clear out, your early childhood years. And if you don't have something, your religion to hold on to when the waters get rough, I think you're really, you're doing a disservice to yourself. And for us who are parents now, I think if you don't give that grounding to your children, you're really doing them a disservice, because life really does get tough. And I saw that later on in my life, and now in the work that I do, and kids who do not have that grounding. And I live in DC now, and I see those kind of kids all the time. It's sad to say. It's a pretty liberal city, so we don't have a lot of Islamic education that we take, that kind of education that we take for granted here. So really, MEC and MCC kind of gave me that grounding that was so critical for me, and also inspired kind of my life's work. I'm an attorney. I do appellate and constitutional litigation. But a lot of my docket is pro bono work that relates to criminal defense. I do a lot of work with individuals returning from prisons and jails, like you mentioned. I also do a lot of death penalty work. And oftentimes people ask me, what inspires you to do criminal defense work? I mean, how can you defend people who have committed some very, very heinous things? And for me, it's, Islam has taught me justice. Islam is the kind of compass that has guided all of my principles related to justice. And, one of the fundamental ideals that I subscribe to is that there is justice in the application of punishment. There is justice in how we treat people procedurally when we take them, along the so-called criminal justice system. So, and then when we receive people after they've served their time, there's a justice in that, and making sure that goes well. So all of those, all the things in my life that I do now, whether it's inside of work or outside of work, really has that grounding in these core principles that I trace back to my time at MCC and MEC.
Thank you, Isra. Thank you, Isra. I think those are some really good reminders to be, looking at our foundation and where we come from. All right, I'm going to move on to Bakir at this point. Again, I would like you to start with your MCC experience. Share with us what that was like. I know you are the co-founder of the Humanities Project, which is doing amazing work at orphanages in Haiti, which Bakir I'd like you to touch upon that, and talk to us why it was important for you to take up a project like that, and how your MCC education impacted your choices.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. First off, of course, I would like to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for everything that has occurred, and we are just a means for all the projects and good things that we do. Second, I have to thank my parents. As she mentioned, my parents came here in 2001. All we had was our clothes on our back, a couple $100 in my father's back pocket, and you know, we didn't have anything when he got here. We didn't know English. My father still doesn't know English, but we're working on it. But you know, it was very tough, and if it wasn't for my father's and mother's perseverance, none of this would have been possible. Even them getting me through MCC, getting me through college. I was the first college graduate in my family, and now in medical school, you know, it's been a long journey, and you know, I definitely love to thank my parents for that. And then thirdly, you brought up MCC Academy. It was called MEC before, so I might say MEC by accident. But MCC obviously gave me a quality education, right? If they didn't, I wouldn't be able to do the things I did in high school and college and be in medical school. But looking back at it, the most amazing thing they gave me, the most important thing that I believe I came out of 8th grade at MCC Academy is my identity, is they gave me a purpose. You know, when I got into high school, and I see a lot of young kids here, a lot of kids were just lost. They were confused. They were ashamed. Some changed their names. You know, people didn't have an identity, they didn't have a community, and that's when kids fall off the road and go into different, you know, aspects of bad things that happen. But one thing that I realized is they gave me an identity. And, you know, nowadays, what is the Ummah? You know, a lot of people ask, they say, oh, the Ummah. What is the Ummah, and what is my responsibility to the Ummah? You know, is it some abstract idea, or is it a living, breathing thing? And is it living, or is it dead? And if it's dead, how do we bring the Ummah back to life? You know, and this starts at home. You know, one thing my parents did to me, thank God, it starts at home with the parents. The parents, they should tell their kids, listen, son, daughter, you're Muslim first, then you're Mayman second. Or you're Muslim first, and then you're Bosnian second. You're Muslim first, or then you're Palestinian second. That's one thing I realized, because we had a very diverse classroom. No one was better than the other person sitting next to them, no matter the color, the race, where they came from, what background they had. So one of the biggest things I got from MEC was they gave me an identity, they gave me a purpose in life, and that's why the Humanity Projects came about. Just to kind of quickly summarize, we have an orphanage right now in Haiti called Medina Orphanage. Right now, there's 35 kids sitting right there. They're probably asleep right now. But alhamdulillah, we took 30 orphans from the street, gave them a shelter, gave them food, and alhamdulillah, we even started the Medina Academy and are educating these 30 orphans in Haiti, alhamdulillah. But the only way this happened is you guys. Because I remember my first trip back to Haiti, I was a broke college student. My friends were like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to help people? But then the MCC community, they all stepped up. Our first fundraiser, $100,000, and I was just some college kid with a story from Haiti, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, I'd like to thank the MCC community. What you guys did was you helped me and my family have someone to be connected to and to thrive and succeed. And jazakallah khair for everything you guys do. Thank you.
Wow.
Can I say something? I'm so sorry, I forgot to say, inshallah, we're going to have our 3rd annual fundraising dinner at MCC, November 8th.
All right, thank you. If anybody was listening, and if you're not blown away, I don't know what to tell you. MashaAllah, Bakir, you're doing amazing, amazing job. I'd like Hazel to go next. Hazel, I have a question for you. Talk about your MCC experience, as like I'm asking every panelist to do. But touch upon your convert experience. As a convert, what were some of your initial challenges? Here at MCC, we're trying to make it inclusive, very intentional about, thinking about our convert population, thinking about the marginalized, thinking about people who are less represented. So talk to us about your convert experience and how can MCC do a better job addressing it, especially the Latino converts, because we do have a big population of Latinos, mashallah, and obviously your MCC experience overall.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Alhamdulillah, I am so honored and grateful to be here with uncles and aunties that I really grew up with. First and foremost, the fact that MCC was in Humboldt Park brings me so much joy, as I'm born and raised in Humboldt Park on Pulaski and North Avenue. So the fact that the masjid was on North and Kedzie is really powerful, because my family, although they're not Muslim, they drove by it. And so when the masjid came here and I frequented it, it was still recognizable for them. One of the interesting things is now I live in Detroit, but anytime anybody goes and says, oh, Hazel, you're from Chicago, like, what masjid do I go to? I say, MCC on Pulaski and Elston, here's the address. And the reason I always mention MCC is because it's always been a haven for everyone. One of my first experiences at MCC, so I didn't take my Shahada at MCC, but one of my first experiences was before I was Muslim, subhanAllah. I was 17, and I frequented the masjid really through happenstance. My friends were my friends' families were part of the leadership, and my friends just frequented the masjid. So it was really through having already had people at the masjid that just really drew me here. One of the things is when I first started looking into Islam and was very interested in converting, but was also really scared, was because I saw Islam as very Desi or Arab. And I felt that, nah, Latinos we can't be Muslim. And it was really meeting other Latina Muslims at MCC that made me realize that, one, there's a deep history of Latinos being Muslim, not only in Spain, but also through enslaved Africans from our motherlands. And I felt that I can be Muslim, right, as a Puerto Rican and Mexican girl from the west side of Chicago. And it was really powerful to be able to meet these women. Some of the challenges, though, that come up, I want to share 2 stories. One, we had a family friend, his street name was Frog. I grew up with Frog, he was always in the streets, but my grandparents' house was his safe haven. So one day he came home from being locked up for a few years. He came to my grandparents' house, and he sees me in hijab. And he's like, Hazel, you became Muslim? Assalamu alaikum. And I was like, and he came and hugged me, right? Because he's known me since I was a kid. I said, wa alaikum salam, how are you? And we were talking, and I asked him, I said, well, what masjid have you gone to? He said, I've gone to MCC, but they don't know what to do with me. And my heart fell, because this was my masjid. And I felt that, how did we fail him? And so I said, no, man, you gotta go back. There's some good people there. And he tried. Eventually, he actually left Islam because of familial pressure. And I kept talking to him, and even my grandmother was like, just talk to him, he seems happy. There was another moment as well with a Latino Muslim event that was happening, and this one sister who'd been Muslim for over 20 years finally got an uncle to come, one of her uncles to come to the masjid. And so he came, and he was a little hesitant. He's looking around. He got his, boots on and everything, looking very stereotypical. And he goes to the restroom, and somebody in the restroom berated him about some adab of the bathroom. And he was just really shocked and confused. And he storms out the bathroom, and he says, "I am never coming back here again." And I remember seeing my friend crying after him, and then, someone spoke to the brother. And so I share those two stories not as like a Debbie Downer moment, but as moments that even though we have beautiful successes and have amazing stories, and we have those of us that are up here, we have amazing experiences, we also have those moments that really can affect someone's life and turn them away. And how can we, as community members, as board members, as leadership, how can we really be with one another and really encompass what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah 49, verse 13. Allah made us into nations and tribes to get to know one another. And that get to know one another is really powerful. It's not berating, it's not looking down, it's inviting people over to your house, like I've done countless times at Bashir Uncle Hasina Auntie's house, right? And so many other people in this room. And so all that to say is, alhamdulillah, my experience has been powerful, and I am so blessed to have the grounding that I had with MCC, and also to still hear good stories from friends who feel that MCC will always be their home base no matter where they live in the world.
That was very beautiful reminders, Hazel. Those are really, I think we need to keep reminding ourselves. I have to remind myself as I am getting into the auntie status as well, to make sure I'm not yelling at younger kids, to make sure I'm being very inviting. I think we all take that, and at MCC we've been very, very intentional about becoming a welcoming space for everybody. My next question is for Shakib. So if you can pass the microphone to him. Shakib Alam. MCC has played a role in your life, so please share that. And you are one of the founders for Pillars Fund, and are deeply involved in supporting many Muslim nonprofit leaders. So this is an area that there wasn't a whole lot of work done in that prior to yours. Additionally, you have the personal capacity that you are a champion of many American Muslim political candidates. How has your MCC experience informed this work that you're doing? And how can a young person make the most out of their experience and affiliation with MCC?
Great. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So I think I'm the oldest person, and in some cases by far, on this panel. And I go back to the original days of MCC. And, I think for me, the MCC community, outside of my parents and my own family, have been literally the most impactful thing in my life. I had a unique experience in the sense that I actually lived in the neighborhood with the Elston Masjid. And so we moved there in 1979, and the masjid was purchased, I think, in 1980. So I actually grew up in the community. We used to walk to Jummah, walk to Sunday school and Tarawih. I mean, I literally grew up in the masjid. There were some days that I was there every single day. And many of the people that are here in this room are like family to me, because I saw them regularly at the masjid. So I think, for me, the MCC community, I can boil it like I don't want to repeat anything that other people have said, because there's a lot of similarities, but there's three main roles that the MCC has played for me, and I think all of these things are just a series of, all I can say is just gratitude and thank you. And I appreciated the question because it allowed me to actually think about these things deeply and reflect on just how important it's been in my life. So the first one is one that we all think about, which is learning our religious traditions, learning the knowledge, and also kind of the practice, right? All of us, many of us slogged through 10 years of Sunday school. We enjoyed going to Jummah. We went to the masjid for Tarawih and for iftar. And it was just an amazing opportunity just to be there in the environment. And I think you learn so much, and I feel very fortunate that many of those things that I've learned are still with me today and are still we're in practice today. And I think about that very much as kind of the internal spiritual, right? And I think some of my friends in the panel have mentioned something about the second part, which is, for me, perhaps even more important, which is thinking about identity. Because the MCC community really helped shape my identity and helped me hang on to my Muslim identity. So this is I think it's critical, particularly like living in America, right? We were kids of immigrants. We really didn't feel entirely comfortable in the 1970s and 80s in our public school environments. It was always very welcoming when we came to the masjid for Jummah, for Sunday school. And there was just so many opportunities to kind of be a part of that. I mean, I think some of you probably recall fondly, and we saw in the video, the stories about going to Camp Wapaka. For many of us, that was the first time we ever left home by ourselves, to be in that environment. So there was just so many opportunities to kind of build your identity. One of the other key pieces of the identity, which I think is perhaps the most important one, is that we had this community of role models, right? Like half an hour ago, we had the panel of presidents. At every single table, I see those people. Each of those people played such a critical role in all of our lives. And we saw them working hard with their time, with their passion. They gave their financial resources to help kind of build a community that all of us together could hang on to our identity. And I think it's extraordinarily important. And so that's thinking about kind of who you are as a person and the external perspective. And then finally for me, I actually had an even more unique MCC kind of experience, which allowed me to actually learn interesting skills that I've applied throughout my life. So my first job was actually at MCC. Back in the 1980s, for a few years, there was an MCC summer school program that was held at American Islamic College. I, along with Sajid Beg, who's somewhere in here, were like counselors one year there. I think I remember getting my paycheck for $600 for 5 weeks of work. It was amazing to like learn how to work, learn how to be responsible. I think the MCC community and Alimuddin uncle a decade ago asked me to join the board. And that was the first board that I've had the opportunity to work on. Now today, like it's a decade later, I'm on half a dozen other boards. I'm on the boards of a university at the University of Illinois. But that foundational experience of sitting on a board in a place where people welcomed me was extraordinary. And then for me, I've been very active philanthropically, and alhamdulillah, it's a blessing. But I actually, more than anything else at MCC, learned how to give at MCC. And seeing the example of people and how they gave and how passionate people were and sacrificed was very important to me. And all of the projects along the way, in small amounts when we were young, the ability to kind of help to pitch in for the MCC, some repair, help to pitch in to help buy the Elston building, and then ultimately what led to the opportunity to kind of really give in a very meaningful, large-scale way. But that was also, I didn't do it alone. That was shepherded, and I was guided by one of these presidents who was on the panel. So for me, many of the things that are foundational in my life that I've learned have come from MCC. And so what I do now in my philanthropy and in political engagement is I don't spend that much time focusing on religious institutions because I think we've done an amazing job in religious institutions. As you all know, 50 years ago when MCC was started, there may have been 50 masjids in America. 50 years later, there's 2,500, and there's a couple hundred more every single year. So I'm focused on this idea of really identity and how do we focus on that, right? Because masajids are grassroots, bottoms-up efforts, but there's an opportunity in identity development that's more top-down. And so we spend our time in our philanthropy focused on finding and supporting American Muslim civic leaders, finding and who allow us to have different role models for young Muslims to have role models to see what they can become, but also those people are amazing ambassadors for us as a community. I think the same thing about politicians. I actually particularly don't like politics, and I don't actually like many politicians, but Muslim politicians I think are amazing because by just standing up, they create an opportunity to show a different version of what doesn't exist in the right? There's a lot of stereotypes about us. They show a leadership example of an American Muslim that many people have not seen, including ourselves. So though a lot of what I learned and what I reflect upon about building my identity is really very much a function of how I spend my time and energy now, thinking about all the other work that we do. I think the thing for younger people to recognize is, of course you should, be a part of the MCC community. There's things to learn. You can learn how to pray. You can learn how to do these, and all of the religious things. But don't forget that there's actually another opportunity, and that's the opportunity to serve and to learn how to lead. And the people here are so welcoming that if you're a young person that wants to do that, you'll get the opportunity to do that. There's been a lot of discussion that there's a lot of arguments and those things. That's actually a good thing. To learn how to live through that as a young person within your community is very powerful because it allows you the opportunity to have done that once at least. So when you go out into the world and develop your life and your career, you've had that experience. That's been my case. And I'm not saying this in any hyperbolic way. I would not have been able to accomplish what I've been able to accomplish in my life, alhamdulillah, if it wasn't for the fact that we had the community around us to kind of give us all these examples.
Thank you, Shakib. I intentionally kept Kazim last. I just want to quickly tell you, it's noteworthy that MCC's, you've been very involved with MCC since your birth. Your parents were part of it. You've been a student at MCC Sunday School, then a teacher, then a principal. MashaAllah. Can we hear a round of applause for that, please? That in itself is amazing, how someone is building up their contribution towards our community, mashallah. So Kazim, tell us why it was important for you to stay connected, and what are some of the changes that you've seen in MCC, and touch upon some of the challenges that you continue to face, and what should we be addressing at this point?
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I want to start with a story. When I was MCC student, and my mom's over there, she can testify to this. She used to have to drag us to Sunday school every single week. The Bears game is on, I don't want to go to Sunday school, and my mom's like, you have to go to school. I didn't realize what I learned until after I graduated. I walked into high school as a freshman at Von Steuben, and I met Muslims that didn't know how to pray. And I was like, man. I met a Muslim who counted how much Quran he knew by how many ayahs he knew. I know 10 ayahs, 15 ayahs, 20 ayahs of Quran. And coming out of Sunday school, we're counting, I know 10 surahs, 15 surahs, 20 surahs, 25 surahs. I'm joined the 25 surah club. And then I realized that there's a huge opportunity, a huge need in our community for education. And if we don't have the education in our community, then our next generation is absolutely going to get lost. There's no question about it. So we have to go, and at that time there were no full-time schools, it was just Sunday schools, only a weekend schools. We have to get involved on that level in order to build up that curriculum, to build up that education level, to build up the interaction in the classrooms to a point where students will actually benefit from the Sunday schools, and then they can go out and live their lives, hopefully, as students of knowledge, of students of Islam throughout their lives, because we're not trying to make you a scholar coming out of Sunday school. We're just trying to get you the basics so you can get out the door and learn how to learn for the rest of your life, right? That's the key. Now, that's one thing. Sunday school has gotten better and better over the years, right? But one of the things is this. The teachers are Some of them have been there for 30 years, 40 years. I think our oldest teacher is 82. And that's amazing. But the problem is that unless younger teachers don't come into the mix, having an 82-year-old talk to a class of 12 or 13 or 14 or 15-year-old students, to get that gap of 70 years, they can't relate. So we need younger people to step up and get involved with the school, and on a larger level, get involved with the community as well. My generation, the generation above me, we often made excuses. The uncles are keeping us down. They don't want us to join the board. They don't want to get us to get involved in communities. And you know what? I think that's just complete garbage. When we were high school and college age students, we came to MCC and we said, okay, we want to do an Imam Siraj Wahaj dinner with 800 people. We want to feed people on the depressed area of MCC. We want to have food in the prayer hall, the youth hall, the community hall, the red room, any place where we want to feed people, that we can feed people, we need to feed people. We need to put people there to eat so that we can fit 800 people in MCC. And we're high school and college age students. MCC will allow you to give that opportunity, but you got to be willing to take the opportunity. You got to be willing to ask for that opportunity. The last thing I want to talk about is this. When our parents came, they had a sink or swim attitude. They're like, either we get the job done or our children are gone. They're not even going to be Muslims anymore. There's no question about it. So they busted their butts. I heard a story of one uncle, before there was the Biha meat markets, he said, I had to go to the farm myself, and I had to slaughter 20, 30, 40 chickens so that we could have the first MCC fundraising dinner, so that my wife could cook there. Right? They worked, everybody worked in the family to get that across. That was and you know, as we get older, the community got bigger, some volunteers came, other volunteers left. People got complacent. Someone else is going to take care of the job. And a lot of times we sit around, the uncles are going to keep us down, other people are going to take care of the job. I'm just going to go home, sit on my chair, and watch my sports on TV, and I don't need to do anything. The fact of the matter is, as all of us here have testified, as Kamran has testified, as Ibrahim Khader has testified, everybody needs to get involved. There's a place for everybody at MCC. If you're a senior still, we have a seniors committee that you can get involved in. If you're interested in dawah, there's an outreach committee. If you're interested in helping out poor people, there's a zakat and a rehab committee. If you're interested in helping out with health care, there's a health committee. There's committees for practically everything. We make jokes that there's too many committees at MCC. There's probably a committee to make committees. But the point is this, we have to step up. We can't have a complacent attitude anymore. We have to have that attitude that our parents had, where it was sink or swim. We gotta swim, and if we don't swim, not only are we gonna sink, our children are gonna sink, our grandchildren are gonna sink, and there's gonna be no one left in this community that says, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. And that's a sign of the Day of Judgment. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that. There's gonna come a time in which the least bit of iman, or the iman of the people will be, my grandfather or my great-grandfather used to say something like, La ilaha illallah. And we're getting there unless we start swimming, unless we step up to the plate, unless we get to the challenge of getting involved on some level, any level. And MCC is a great place to start. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.
MashaAllah, Kazim really wrapped it up nicely for all of us. As you can see, like every single person had a different story to share, and it all started at MCC, mashallah. I think it's amazing, and thank you all for making the time to be part of this. And sorry we couldn't add more time for this, but alhamdulillah, like, you know, we did get to, you get to share some nuggets with us, and we are like feeling very, very privileged that you have shared it with us. Thank you so much. And At this point, I would like to take the 1 minute to acknowledge my dinner team. The MCC dinner team has worked many months to put this gala together. I hope you're enjoying. I know we're all waiting for dinner, which will be shortly, inshallah. And I would personally like to thank my family, especially my husband, Ansar Ahmed, for me being MIA a lot of times and him being very patient. Thank you. At this point, I would like to ask Usher to take back, and we will wrap this up. Thank you.